Screw it. Start saving money.
What if I gave you a Bitcoin? Would you take it, or would you?
For me, that's absurd. There was a portion of boomers that were useless. Yeah, I not only went broke, I was broken. Go do your own. But for God's sakes, do it.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I feel like it's more than I deserve. The advice nowadays for younger people is just to work harder, get a higher paying job, just hustle. And I'm sure you've seen videos online on TikTok, and people have been showing you about young people in their 20s struggling to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think back when you were in your 20s, was it easier to buy a house than it is today?
Mathematically, wages have not kept up with house prices, so mathematically it wouldn't have been easier. But it has always been a strain.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been. You go back pre-1960, pre-1955, before FHA, VA, conventional, before standardized mortgages, when you just had to go to your local banker and talk him into it. The down payments were massive, and usually couples didn't buy a home back in those days until they were in their 30s or 40s. But the advent of stuff like FHA or VA with nothing down or almost nothing down, and 5% down on a Fannie Mae even, then it became normalized in the 60s, 70s, 80s that everyone ought to get a house. And you ought to get a house. Got 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 to get a house. And we had first-time home buyer programs that have evolved over the decades and all that, because it's always been difficult with your first job out of school to afford a house. But it's hard right now. It's really legitimately hard. And what you've got to do, though, is I think, and I know folks have a Dave Ramsey stereotype or whatever, but it doesn't matter what they think. But the reality is that just because you are frustrated, you don't get a pass on math. Just because you feel like the whole thing's rigged against you, you don't get a pass on math. You don't want to sign yourself up and punish yourself as a way of showing the man. I mean, come on.
Right.
You buy a house you can't afford, that's punishing yourself. You're going to set yourself back a decade. And so what we tell folks is just there's a couple of variables here that you got to look at where you live. I mean, first-time home buyers in Los Angeles, in Manhattan, in their 20s have never been a thing. You've never been able to afford those markets. You also can't afford to live in Tokyo or London, some of the most expensive cities in the world. Paris, the most expensive cities in the world. And some of them are in the United States, So you can't just go, well, I'm going to live in L.A. and I should be able to buy a house. No, you never have been able to, ever, in the history of housing. So you have to look at where you're living, because you don't get a pass on math because you want to live in a certain place. And then you've got to look at give yourself a little bit of patience. Breathe a little bit. I mean, have a 36-month plan instead of a 3-month plan. And then as a part of that, do look at your income. But I was being interviewed by a lady the other day on NPR, and she said she'd talked to a guy whose daughter was working in a coffee shop, and she was a dancer in a show in downtown Nashville, one of the country shows. And she couldn't afford a house. And I'm like, well, in the history of man, working in a coffee shop and being a dancer in a country music band has never been able to afford a house.
What about the people that say back in the 70s you could get a job out of high school, and back then the price to income ratio was closer to 3, and maybe nowadays the average is 5 to 6?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Out of high school, but also then the other opportunities weren't there. And we've got the wonderful opportunities in the marketplace today that digital everything affords you. And so you just got to choose a career path. You can't say, I'm going to be a starving artist, I'm going to be a barista, and buy a house. It doesn't work mathematically. So you've got to choose. And, I'm meeting lots and lots and lots of Gen Zers that are making serious money, and they're very serious about their lives, and they've done a great job, and many of them even paid off their home in their mid-20s. But what are they doing? Well, they're buying a home in an affordable area. They're buying an affordable home, not a McMansion, and they're working their tails off, and they picked a career field that enables them to make some money. And so that's how they won. I didn't dictate this. I didn't make the rules, but you still have to be able to pay the freaking payment.
Mm-hmm. Do you think if the FHA did a 40-year loan mortgage, would you advise people take that?
No. number one, the math doesn't change much. The difference in a 30-year payment and a 40-year payment is not much, because math, as you know, compound interest works on a hockey stick. It works on a curve, okay? So the difference in a 15 and a 30 is not double, okay? And the difference in a 30 and a 40 is not 3/4. So it's, it's the ratios are not there. So it tapers down. So you could take out a 100-year mortgage and the payments don't change that much. So it doesn't help is the point. If it helped, that'd be okay. But we could talk about it. But I still want you on a path that takes you 15, 20, 30 years from now into a net worth of, $1 million to $5 million. And paying off your home is that path. And paying off and keeping a mortgage your whole life is not that path. It's not a path to wealth.
So should people continue just renting for the meantime?
Until they can get these 4 things adjusted in their life to be able to afford a house. And that's what couples have done generationally, decade after decade after decade. But again, it's hard out there right now. It really is, and it is frustrating.
Should we prioritize a 401k contribution matches or saving for a mortgage?
Depends on your personal goal in that situation. If you're going to save for a house for like longer than 5 years, then you probably ought to get your 401k started. If you want to stop your 401k or not start it for a short period of time, like 30, like 2 years max or something like that, maybe 3, and you just pile up money to get the down payment to make the numbers work, then that's fine. Either one's fine. You just don't want to say, okay, I'm not going to put money in my 401k for 10 years. That's mathematical suicide, right? But lots of people do things on a short term in a sprint to bust it loose and get things moving mathematically.
If a caller called me and I was in your position, I feel like I would just tell them to focus on the 401k just because it's 100% ROI, whereas real estate is probably not going to get you 100%. But assuming you have nothing left over, then that's a different story.
Well, and what the problem is, every year rent goes up. And so if by focusing on the 401k you got that 100% ROI, you're going to trade it out over a decade long, over a 10-year period of time. Mathematically, you're going to trade it out for higher rent. So you're going to end up treading water. So you've got to get that largest line item in your budget, which is your housing cost. When you get that locked down and it doesn't go up every year, it changes the whole dynamic. As your income goes up, then your house payment doesn't go up. As your income goes up and things move along, your career opens up, house payment's still fixed. And that's true all the way into retirement.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to be in retirement is still paying a stinking payment on a house because it destabilizes the retirement.
Someone's asking, I make $115,000 a year. Should I be maxing out my IRA and 401k, or should I buy a home?
Well, I would want to know how old they are,
More context,
and
sure.
are they married, and how big a deal is buying a home to them?
Okay.
But if home ownership is in their world is a big deal right now, again, we teach it's okay to stop for a short period of time to pile up that down payment to get that item in the budget fixed and to get in on this upswing in real estate prices because it's going to go up and it's going to be harder later. So let's get in on it as fast as we can.
Is it fair to say you absolutely hate credit cards on a scale of 1 to 10?
I hate what they do to people, so then I end up hating them.
So
I hate car loans and car leases too.
You have no credit cards.
I don't. I have 4 pieces of plastic in my pocket. My debit card on my business, my debit card on my personal, my driver's license, and my handgun carry permit. That is the only plastic I have in my pocket.
Wow. Okay. But would you ever make a case for responsible use of a credit card?
No.
Okay.
A debit card will do everything credit card will do.
Like consumer protections.
Yep.
And what about building your credit score
Why do you need a credit score?
to buy a house?
You can buy one without a credit score.
Most people can't. You can.
Yeah, they can. Anybody can. If you have 0 credit score,
Well,
you can do manual underwriting.
Wouldn't that interest rate be much higher though?
No, same exact.
Okay.
George Camel, Ramsey personality, bought one 4 years ago. Manual underwriting
Through a credit union.
with Churchill Mortgage, one of our advertisers.
Yeah.
They do it all the time because we tell people not. But you can't have a low credit score. You got to have a no credit score.
Oh, okay. I have to ask this question. I know you got this recently, but people are asking to clarify the 10% return assumptions. Because my assumption was it was 6 to 8% or 4% safe withdrawal rate.
You're talking about a withdrawal rate, or are
Yes.
you talking about rates of return?
Well, both, right? So
The S&P has averaged 11.2 since its inception.
So what is a safe withdrawal rate?
Well, so if it's averaged 11.2 since
Yeah.
its inception, why would 10 be a problem?
Right.
I'm confused.
What index was that from?
The Standard & Poor.
S&P?
11.2 for 90 years.
Right. Do you think it'll continue being that way, though?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I own one mutual fund that's got a 12.1, and it's 80 years old.
Right.
Average annual for 80 years. And in the last 20 years, it's done excellent.
Well, why were people giving you grief about the 8% withdrawal rate?
Because the standard crap in the world of economics, the stuff we're taught in college is 4%, 4%, 4%. The stuff they teach you when you're working on your CFP, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%. Which if you pull 4% and you can live on that, that's fine. I don't care. You don't have to. But and it's the whole point is this: it never ends up. You never end up exactly where you were planning to end up anyway. Okay, you say, okay, I need $1 million because at 8% that's $80,000 a year, and I can live on that in the future. Okay, or I need $2 million because at 8% that's $160,000. But you never end up with $2 million. You always end up with less or more. And so you end up dealing with reality when you're 67 or you're 70, and you're starting to actually pull money off. Or you hit my reality, which is I'm never going to touch it at all.
Right.
I will die never having done a withdrawal.
That's incredible. Yeah. Your principal's growing faster than you can ever withdraw on it.
Yeah. Well, and you just don't pull out more than the growth rate. And usually I like growth rate minus inflation rate. So the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, averaged 4.2% for 72 years. Okay? Go back and look at the CPI. That's the average inflation rate. So Bidenomics, 9.8% inflation is not normal. Jimmy Carter, 14%. Is not normal. The average is 4.2. And so if we're dealing with that, if you made 10 and you took out you adjusted for inflation, took out 4.2, and you withdrew 6, you'd be just fine. If you made 12 and you hold 4 out, which that mutual fund I'm talking about that I own has averaged 12 for 80 years, and if I leave 4 in there and pull 8 out, not only am I not touching the principal, I'm growing the principal mathematically, the equivalent of inflation every year. So I'm getting an inflation-adjusted income.
Sure.
Up. The principal's continuing to grow at the rate of average inflation, assuming you made 12. And here's the thing, though. You're never going to make 12. You're going to make 16, or you're going to make 6.
Right.
Okay? And so that's how the reality is. So none of this is all theory that somebody's sitting with their calculator in their mother's basement trying to figure this out. Screw it. Start saving money and use whatever assumptions you want to use that cause you to get off your butt and cause you to save money. The people that invest are the ones that end up with money. That's the math. And so, if you don't like Dave Ramsey's assumptions, who cares?
Right.
Go do your own. But for God's sakes, do it.
Yeah. I like that. So 3% is probably too conservative. Okay.
Well, I mean, not if you're making 7.
Right.
And the inflation's 4, okay? But so what have you got it invested in? I've got my mutual fund portfolio averages, not every year, has averaged for decades more than 12%. And I'm not a rocket surgeon. I mean, they're not that hard to pick. Right. You can look at the trend line on the historical data, look at the S&P trend line. It's in every prospectus you look at in a mutual fund. So it's really not,
so
it's not
You're
hard.
Not picking individual stocks at all?
I don't do any single stocks.
What do you think of dividend stocks? Because I'm a huge dividend investor. I love dividends. I love blue chip, boring dividends.
Blue chip is a great, certainly to have in the portfolio. I mean, we teach growth and income, aggressive growth, and international is the 4 to split it across, and that's what I personally do. But, if you want to sit heavy in that growth and income, you're going to get those blue chips in there, and there'll be a bunch of dividends in there, and that's a sweet play. It's a very predictable, risk-averse play.
Yeah.
And because the companies are very solid,
right.
Old dinosaur, they don't move fast. They're not going to spike up, but they're also not going to spike down most of the time. I mean, so it's a good play.
Well, the criticism people have about dividends is you're just getting taxed unnecessarily, right? Because you're drawing on that income. Do you agree with that?
It's one downside. It's one of the reasons I use that S&P 500 to park money in. Because once you've maxed out all your retirement stuff and you're just free market investing, then you got to look at the tax issue, right? And you could do dividend-based blue chips, but if I park it in a low turnover mutual fund where they don't sell the stocks, so 4%, 5% turnover ratio, meaning that the 95% of the portfolio stays put, that means I don't hardly get any taxes until I cash out.
Right.
And when I cash out at capital gains rate, not at ordinary income rate. So it's a very cool play post-retirement to throw stuff in low-turnover mutual funds, even if you're just leaving it alone 4 or 5 years to buy a piece of real estate with it. Real estate does the same thing. You're not paying any taxes on the growth because it's capital gains growth until you cash out. And if you never sell it, which I hardly ever sell a piece of real estate, then my tax rate is, ridiculously low because I've got all this capital gain net worth growth. Now, I'm not using the cash, but I don't need it, because I got other stuff that's producing cash.
What would you do if you had $10,000 to invest right now?
The only way I buy real estate, and I own a bunch of it, is with cash. And so obviously that's not going to buy me a piece of real estate. So what I do when I get chunks of money that size is I just throw them in an S&P 500 and just let them sit there and if they stay in there a year, then I'm at capital gains on it instead of ordinary income in terms of the growth. And then when I get enough in there to buy a piece of real estate, I'll clean that account out and go buy a piece of real estate with it. So I get a little check from a publisher or something, a little royalty check, and I'll just throw it in there, and then I'll look up, no, hey, there's $500,000 in there, and we can go buy something.
Would you prioritize investing in the S&P or yourself if it maybe increases your income if all they had is $10,000?
If you've got an entrepreneurial endeavor, that's going to always give you the best ROI, assuming you got it figured out, assuming you're making money. But yeah, money I put into the Ramsey Solutions far exceeds anything else I do. And it does most people that own a business. I mean, so if you've got some kind of thing you're doing, a hustle, and it's proven. Now, I'm not talking about something where you just had this little dream and you're getting ready to waste $10,000. But I'm talking about you've got product market fit, you're set up, you're actually got some proof texting there's some profits coming in, and you go, okay, if I bought that piece of equipment, or I added a team member, or I did whatever, then we can scale that a little bit more, and it's going to that's going to ROI way better than any mutual fund.
Have you shared publicly how much you have in real estate?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's probably the buildings we're sitting in are about $600 million.
600, and it's paid off.
Oh yeah, we built them with cash, and then I've got a bunch of other stuff, so it's got to be over 700, somewhere in there, maybe 800.
Oh my goodness! I'm basically talking to a billionaire right now.
I guess I don't know. I don't keep up with that. That doesn't matter at that point, right?
If you were criticizing your own portfolio, like if I was like, "Hey, Dave, look at my portfolio. I have $700 million in real estate," would you say I'm too overweight in real estate?
I would say you better love real estate.
Okay.
If you're going to be that deep in it. And I do. I grew up in the business, and I've had my license since I was 18. And it's what I did before I went broke, and, all that. So it's my second love. Ramsey's my first love.
Yeah.
And
it's what you know.
But yeah, it's what I know, and I'm very, very comfortable in it. It doesn't, the things that, tenants and the stuff that drives people crazy with real estate, it doesn't bother me at all. It's just second nature. So, but you shouldn't do that. If you go, this tenant's got a lot of drama. It's like, well, you shouldn't be doing real estate. Right. That's why I always laugh when they say real estate's passive income. It ain't passive at all. It's very active. You got to screw with it. But the rates of return are much higher than you can get in mutual funds.
Assuming that you were in your 20s, how would you start all over again? What job would you get? What skills would you study? I've worked for myself my whole life, just about. I think I've had a real job just a short period of time in my early. Like I got out of college, I worked for a guy for 6 months. I worked for another one for a year, and then I sold real estate for a company. But that was straight commission. So I've either been straight commission or self-employed my whole life, virtually. And I would do something like that for sure. I'd find something in the marketplace that I enjoyed the process and the model, and that I could scale. And I think today, the beautiful thing about the digital world that you and I live in, with all this stuff, is that you can do stuff fast. Mm-hmm. It's pretty quick. You can hockey stick some stuff, man, up and to the right, man. And you're proof of that. I mean, you're a big star. It's pretty amazing. I wish.
But no, you are. You got serious numbers, man. I'm proud of you. Well done.
Thank you. I actually do want to ask you to rate my portfolio, if you're okay with that. I don't have like all the individual stocks.
Okay.
I just want to give you a breakdown of my situation.
Okay.
So you can kind of look at it.
All right. I don't know why you need me to rate it. I think you're probably the guy that should be rating it. But.
No, yeah. I'd love for you to criticize it. You could tear it apart.
I'm not going to criticize.
Well, I know you're going to criticize at least one part.
Okay.
And I'd love to talk to you about it.
What's miscellaneous?
Collectibles, things like
Most of that number in crypto, though?
yes,
Okay.
specifically one. Dave's my financial advisor right now. He's auditing me.
Wow, you have done amazing. Congratulations, dude.
Thank you.
Very well done, man. I knew you were killing it, but this is great.
Thank you.
Way to go, man. You're in great shape. And the stocks are single stocks?
Mostly S&P.
Okay. All right. So you're sitting like I was talking about then.
Yeah, half S&P, half blue chips.
Yeah, because you're holding to those dividends you were talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, okay,
About
cool.
24,000
Yeah,
a
cool.
year.
I mean, you amazing. How old are you?
35.
Way to go, dude.
Thank you.
Way to go. You're going to be so rich. You already are, but I mean, you're going to be, this is crazy.
I'm waiting for it.
If you don't, if you don't screw something up, you're going to do great. This way to go, man.
Thank you. What do I need to do differently? Should I sell my crypto?
Oh, sure. I don't. You know that. I mean, Dave's not ever going to tell you to do crypto, and the reason is not because I'm stupid boomer that doesn't understand crypto.
Sure,
That's not it at all. Where I think people get confused, and they have on this subject for sure, the subject of gold also, is we confuse our terms and use the wrong word.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There is speculation, and speculation is for short-term gain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm day trading stock. I'm buying a currency. I'm buying gold. Because if you were buying gold for the long term, you would look at its 100-year track record of 2%,
Mm-hmm.
and you would never buy it. So you're speculating. Flip this house. You're speculating.
Spec homes.
You're
Yeah.
buying. It's called a spec home.
Right.
So you're speculating. That is not investing. Investing is always, by definition,
Mm-hmm.
long term. And you would never invest long term in something that has a crummy or non-existent long-term track record.
Mm-hmm.
Because by definition, if it doesn't have a long-term track record, you are speculating. You're guessing. And so when you say my investment portfolio, it should not include speculation. You could say, I've got my investment portfolio, and then I'm doing this thing on the side. I'm flipping houses. But flipping houses is not a portfolio.
Well, I guess when I look at investing, I look at it on a spectrum. Like if Bitcoin was here, right? Or rather, if scams were on this end of the spectrum and treasury bonds were on this side of the spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
all investing is a form of speculation. So you have the S&P somewhere
No.
closer to
Speculation, by definition, is short-term.
But couldn't you hold on to Bitcoin for the long term? Like there have been people that have held
You could
it for
hold
over
on to
10
it for
years.
the long term,
Yeah.
but you have no reason to believe,
Mm-hmm.
based on history, because it doesn't have one,
Right.
that you're going to win.
Right.
Except just your assumption that because it's digital and it's cool,
Right.
and the cool kids are doing it. But the people that are getting in it based on greed.
Mm-hmm.
They're not basing it on long term. I have analyzed this investment with my calculator, and I am looking into the future, and I can see, that's known as a guess.
Right.
And so by definition, you're speculating. By definition.
But there is a difference between speculating and, say, a pure scam, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is not a scam.
So you wouldn't say Bitcoin is necessarily a scam.
No, it's not a scam.
Okay.
It's not a scam. But people are treating it like it's an investment.
Right.
And buying anything like that is a speculation. By definition, buying wheat futures is a speculation. We're guessing as to what the dadgum crop is going to come in the spring. And so it's a speculation. I don't play commodities in any way. I don't do options with puts and calls. It's a speculation. I don't day trade. 78% of day traders in the stock market lose money. 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, they get pissed off when you suggest that what they're doing is basically a bad form of gambling.
Have you ever studied the technicals of Bitcoin at all? Like, have you read the white paper or understood like how it works?
Sure.
In any way?
Yeah. I mean, I've not gone into nowhere near like you have. I'm sure. You're probably much more of an expert on it than I. But it just falls into a category. The technicals won't change it for me.
Okay.
So if you had, it'd be the same thing of a new tech company blows up. They go from venture capital. They're going to take it public. They're going to do an IPO. Am I putting money in that? No. When Facebook went public, did I put money in it? No, not a dime, because that's betting on the short term. Now, you look back 10 years, has Facebook done okay? I don't know. I don't follow their stock, but probably could have been okay. I may have missed out But I don't play
Right.
short game. I play long ball. That's investing. And so once you put it in that category, I just don't do it.
Right.
I don't have to go into the technicals.
Right.
Because I'm not going to play.
I'm just trying to find the missing link between who you are as a person, because I agree with everything you say, and I'm like, how do I still agree and believe in Bitcoin? Because I'm not a short-term investor. I'm holding it for the long term.
How do you explain that that's a long-term investment?
Because it's governed by code, right? There's nothing you can change about it. It's not some mystery of speculation. Everything that
but it is
do,
it is a currency.
it is a commodity.
It is a currency.
It's not a currency.
Well, a commodity. So commodity prices are driven by one thing: supply demand.
Right.
That's all.
Yes.
You can't write the technical white paper on that.
No, you can't. But
if everybody suddenly abandons Bitcoin, your Bitcoin's going to be worth air.
Sure.
If everybody comes after Bitcoin, like a Baptist after a casserole, your Bitcoin's going to go through the roof.
That's fair.
You are not in control of that. You cannot predict that with a white paper or technicals.
True, but I feel like you can say that about anything, whether it's a particular stock or the stock market, bonds. People can abandon that in lieu of something else.
They could, but they don't have a history. The difference here is you don't have a history. The technicals are based on what they hope, wish, think. But so's the IPO.
This year, actually, in April, Bitcoin became more scarce by supply than gold in terms of the.
Yeah, but last year in April it wasn't. So
but
you're
I'm trying, guys.
Hey,
I
think you're a genius. I think you've done a great job with the portfolio. Would I do that? I think we have the question answered. I would not do that, and that's why.
To be fair, I'm not here to convince anyone. I just love to get Dave's perspective, because, to be honest, I think $1 trillion asset like Bitcoin will do its thing regardless of whether I speak about it or not. I have no influence over it.
And same here.
Yeah.
I don't think Bitcoin's going to fail because Dave Ramsey said don't do it.
Right.
What I'm worried about is that guy, who should be putting money in his 401k. He should have paid off his car.
Right.
He should have gotten rid of his student loan. He should be thinking long term. He should be getting his house paid off. And instead, he's freaking putting money in this stuff. That's absurd.
Right. That's a fair point. I would agree with that. There's other priorities.
He's who I worry about.
Yeah.
I don't worry about you and me. If you lost in that portfolio, if you lost 100% of your Bitcoin, you're okay.
Right.
You're still a multimillionaire.
Sure.
You're still incredible portfolio. So, this becomes a theoretical argument at that point.
Right. What if I gave you a Bitcoin? Would you take it, or would you not accept it?
Well, it would be pretty hypocritical. as much as I have trashed the idea publicly since it became a thing.
How could you say no?
I could easily say no.
Okay.
What if you gave me a free credit card? I could say no. But would it kill me? No, it wouldn't kill me. But
you wouldn't accept it, even if I offered one.
No.
Wow.
It would be hypocritical.
I mean,
how can I do that with integrity and tell everybody not to do it? But for me, I could take it. No.
You can donate it.
Okay, I'll donate back to you. We're good.
That's
We're good.
fair. I tried. Okay. So I have a Tesla Model Y that I bought for, I want to say $62,000. I owe $42,000 on it at 2.5% interest. Actually, 2% interest. But it's worth $30,000. So I'm underwater on it. Do I just continue making payments or pay it off, get rid of it?
I suspect you've got the money to just pay it off.
I do, but there's something about 2% interest where I'm just making minimum payments where it's not a big deal. Would you recommend that I just pay it off?
Yes, because debt is not only mathematical. It's got free rent in your brain.
Yeah.
It burns calories. And so the borrower is slave to the lender. And when you don't have any debt, it's just a different feeling.
So I wanted to ask you about your craziest calls that you've had on the show.
We've been doing this for 30 years. It crazy lines up all the time. It's runs together. Wow. I don't know. There's so many.
Is there one that sticks out that maybe recently happened?
I think the ones that stick out are the probably more than the crazy funny ones or the sad ones where some guy calls. I remember the first time I got that call, it was on talk radio. Nowadays, of course, we're on podcast and YouTube and talk radio. But the guy had pulled over the side of the interstate because of traffic noise and was sitting on the shoulder and talking to me on his cell phone. And he said, I just left the oncologist and they gave me 2 months to live. And I'm like, and the first guy you call is me?
Wow.
He goes, well, I'm going home to tell my wife. And the only way I can emotionally process this and walk it through with her is I've got to be able to know I've got her set up to be okay. And he goes, I need to talk through the checklist of what I need to do to be ready for her to take care, to make sure she's taken care of. So we sat there and talked about his life insurance that was in place and having a will and, laying out as many decisions as he could lay out that, and give her direction as to what she should do with the money and who she should talk to and having her corner. It was real poignant, but I'm like, it kind of took my breath away. The guy gets a death sentence from his doctor, and the first guy he calls is me on the air live.
Yeah.
And but that's happened many times since. I've talked to several people over the years that have, they're maybe not their first call, but maybe they go, okay, we've been fighting this cancer thing for 6 months, and they're saying I probably got, another month and a half before I go into hospice. I want to check in, and I'm having this conversation with somebody who's getting ready to go to heaven. I mean, those are.
That must be really humbling, yeah.
Well, it takes the responsibility of that. And I'm like, God, and you trust us to call us on the air at that. Wow, that's mind blowing.
But on the flip side, you help millions and millions of people get their lives on track. So that must be really cool too. It
is, and getting to meet them everywhere I go, from young Gen Zers we've got the numbers are crazy on Gen Z listening to us and watching us, and so I'm really thankful. I mean, I just stopped into the stereo store, and this, young guy, 20 years old, comes running over. He's working there with his little badge on, and hey, man, you're that guy on TikTok. Hey, man. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty neat.
So out of all of Dave Ramsey's advice, my favorite one is baby step 4, which is to invest 15% of your household earnings towards retirement. And that's why I want to briefly mention the sponsor of today's video, Moomoo. Moomoo is a one-stop trading app available for users in the United States, Canada, and Australia.
If you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of money, Moomoo offers something called fractional shares.
Rather than needing to buy a whole share of a company, you can now purchase a portion of a company and invest as little as $5 into companies like NVIDIA. And this unlocks opportunities that before were considered too expensive.
But what truly sets Moomoo apart is its unparalleled affordability compared to other brokerage apps. Here's how they stack up against the competition with some of the lowest rates compared to everybody else. The app prides itself on transparency with no hidden fees, a real-time option chain without subscriptions, and professional features available at no extra cost.
And of course, the best part is that you can get up to 10 fractional shares made up of the Magnificent Seven. And that's stocks like NVIDIA, Apple, Amazon, Meta, and more when you complete your first deposit of $100 and you maintain your average asset balance for 60 days. This is a limited time exclusive bonus that ends on May 28th for US users, so make sure you use that link down below to receive it, and of course, terms and conditions apply.
They're also offering their cash sweep, which is 5.1% APY on uninvested cash. And rates are subject to change, so please check out their disclosures for the latest data.
And for Canadian users, starting May 9th, if you've never deposited into Moomoo before, you can get some incredible cash rewards. If you deposit $100, you can instantly get $50 back, and if you deposit $5,000, you can get $100. Of course, don't forget to use the links down below in the description of this video. Thank you, Moomoo, for sponsoring this segment of the video, and now let's get back to it.
So your net worth on Google says it's between 600 million to upwards of $1 billion.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I think it says 200 million plus, but I think that's probably inaccurate since you said the building's worth 600 million.
Pretty much all of those net worth estimates on everyone
Totally
I know
wrong.
is not accurate.
Yeah.
It was 55 million for a long time.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, probably somewhere upwards of 600 million, assuming you said this building is 600 million.
This campus.
Yeah.
This campus, yeah.
So how do you marry the idea of extreme wealth and your faith?
A couple things. One is I'm very sure, after studying Scripture for a long time, that wealth is not prohibited spiritually. And people who say that the Bible says that you have to be poor to be holy, it simply does not say that. Those are people that aren't reading the Scriptures accurately. They don't understand what they're really saying. For instance, people say the love of money is the root of all, or money is the root of all evil. No, that's not what it says. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. Second thing is that part of that faith journey is just understanding that I don't really own anything. I'm just a manager. And Christians would say we're stewards, which is an old English word that simply means fiduciary, right? It means I'm a manager of someone else's stuff. So a property manager is a steward, right? So I'm a property manager for God. I'm a business manager for God. So and as long as I emotionally and spiritually don't feel like mine,
Right.
you know,
You don't covet it.
and
Right.
it's not. My job is to manage it well for the owner, and so technically I'm poor.
God owns it all.
Yeah, technically, yeah. God, he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He owns the hills, and so I'm technically managing it for him. And that even played into how we've talked with our next generation, the Ramsey, next generation of Ramseys coming up. When we sat down, unfolded, because when they were growing up, they didn't have a grasp of where we were. They knew we were okay, but they didn't have it. We wouldn't share numbers with a 14-year-old, because then they go to school and do something stupid, right? So, but when they're in their 20s and coming out of college and getting married, we sat down and said, okay, here's the estate plan. Here's what's going on. And before we open this up, you need to understand it's probably going to be a little bit, there's some zeros here you probably didn't expect, and it's not going to be yours. You're just going to be managing it. So as you see these numbers being handed off to you in the next generation, you need to feel the weight of that as a responsibility versus, woohoo, I just hit the lotto.
Right.
And to their credit, all three of them and their spouses view it that way too. So I guess it's how they were raised.
Wow.
Well, maybe we could dive into that a little bit more. Like, how do you go about rewarding success and punishing failure and teaching people?
You mean with kids or?
Well, I'd say responsibility for kids and the people you love for sure, because you're trying to share that, but also sometimes internally how you may talk to yourself or how somebody can change their own mental state.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing people run into with money issues is we want to do nice things for our kids and the people we love, and we've got the ability once we get some wealth built, right? The hook for all of us is out of an act of love to not be a wimp and just give somebody money just to make them go away, or just to not have to deal with the conflict. And so obviously if you've got someone that's misbehaving or is not disciplined or not willing to work or whatever, and you give them money, you're causing them to do more of that.
Yeah, you're not helping them.
That's called enabling in the world of psychology, right? And so we don't want to be an enabler. We don't give a drunk a drink. That's not healthy. It's not good for the drunk, and it's not an act of love. It's wimping out. It takes more courage to sit down with someone you love and go, hey, I'll help you financially, but you don't really have a financial issue. You've really got this issue and that issue, and I'll help you work on those things. And if we need to pay for some counseling for your drug problem, I'll help you pay for that. I want to help you be a better you, not just throw money at your latest frustration,
Yeah.
And so and that's hard. It's hard with people you love in your life, your family, your friends, and everything else, and to not fund it. I mean, if you've got a kid that the extreme stuff is, you think of like if you got a kid that's doing heroin and you give them $1 million, you killed them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to overdose. I mean, because you funded their death. And that's the extreme, but the money makes us more of what we are,
right?
And so good and bad, it magnifies us. And so to step into that is, people say, well, that's tough love, and I'm like, no, it's really just love, just loving somebody well rather than wimping out. Just saying, I don't want to face my mother's wrath, so I'll just give her some money so she'll shut up. Instead, go, Mom, really. You're 52 years old. You really ought to get a job. You really ought to have the dignity of sustainability, and it's, sitting and, watching Oprah reruns and eating chocolate is not a plan. You got to get, whatever it is, whatever the thing is, you got to help them deal with that. But that takes more calories. It takes more energy than just throwing money at it.
Yeah. And as a country as a whole, do you feel like we're getting softer, or do you think we're getting, with the wealth that like the United States has, stronger with it, amplifying the good or the bad?
I think we see both. We see the bad on the news, and it makes it feel like that everything's gone to hell in a handbasket. And, one of the things that kind of goes with that is, an example is all this false narrative, not accurate, lies told about Gen Z and about millennials. They're a useless generation. They're participation trophy people. They live in their mother's basement. They don't do anything. And that's just not true. I mean, I've got 1,100 team members. Of them, 600 or 700 are either millennial or Gen Z, and they're awesome. They're amazing employees. They work like animals. They get it. They're smart. They care deeply. They're very missional. Now, they've got some friends in the same generation who are useless.
Right.
Who are what the stereotypes talk about.
Yeah.
But to just take these two generations and throw them under the bus and say, well, they were given everything, they were never challenged, they don't have a callus, they don't know how to work hard. They do. Yeah, they do. That's not true. It's just not true. Now, is there a portion? Sure. But I'm a boomer. There was a portion of boomers that were useless, and that they didn't have any sense, and they're greedy and everything else. The boomers had their own thing. So every generation's got some version of that. But that's an example of not just a generation, but America saying, okay, all Americans have gotten soft. They don't work hard. No, there's plenty of Americans that do. And a dirty little secret is that the charitable giving by private individuals in America, the number of dollars that people give that no one can tally up because there's no central nervous system to pull it all together. There's no database to pull it all together. But I run with these guys. I was with a guy that's worth about $4 billion the other night, and he was talking about how they dropped $500 million into this one thing, and you will never know it happened. Because he won't tell anybody. The only reason I know about it is I'm his friend. And the number of kids that were fed, the number of people that were taken care of in this situation with this one stroke of a check. It's more than an entire country's GDP that people in America give away out of the goodness of their hearts. And it's wealthy people that are good people, but nobody talks about it.
Well, that speaks wonders to the human character, though.
Yeah, it's there. It's there. It's all that good is there. But that doesn't make, it doesn't. It's not good clickbait.
Right.
It doesn't make your YouTube video go. It doesn't make your Fox News headline salacious enough to cause somebody to click on it or watch it, or it doesn't. So it's easier to just talk negative about everybody,
and it doesn't feel good to share either.
Yeah,
I donated this money, guys. Smash the like button. Like, what?
Yeah, it's the only reason I ever talk about it is to inspire others to do it.
Yeah,
not to go humble brag, right? But I've done we do a certain amount of our Ramsey Family Foundation giving in anonymous settings and silent and don't talk about it. But occasionally, especially since I'm in the money space, I want to set an example. I want to inspire others to give. So I talk about generosity, and here's a thing we did, and use it as an example, but not as a humble brag.
Right. Like when your kids were growing up, did you pay them an allowance or?
Yeah, I did. I like words because I'm a content guy.
Okay.
And allowance to me, if you make allowance for someone, it's because they're deficit. Because they're not good enough. They can't do it.
So no allowances in the Ramsey family?
No, I don't want to make allowance for you. You're a superstar.
It's a very common parenting technique.
Yeah, it is. We had commissions. You're on commission.
Oh, interesting.
You work,
Your
you
children?
get paid. You work, you get paid.
Oh
You
my
don't work, you
gosh.
don't get paid. And so when they were little bitty, and we actually sell a thing called Financial Peace Junior now that is a chore board for your refrigerator, and you can feed the dog up there, make your bed, and it doesn't take a lot of money when they're 3 or 4 or 5 years old to start to have them learn the basics of money, that money comes from work. So you feed the dog, you get your $1 that week for doing that. We had 5 chores, we gave them $1 a chore, when they were little bitty. Because we're not like we're trying to fund a mutual fund. We're just trying to teach a lesson, So you don't feed the dog, you don't get the $1. And then it wadded up so it takes up more visual space, put it in a clear jar so they see it build. And then they can save up for something, or they can give something. But they need to learn to work for money and to give money, to be generous with it. Because if you're not generous with money, you're never going to win with it. You need to learn to save and invest it, and you need to learn to enjoy it and spend some on you. And so, and we can teach those lessons and it's remarkable as they, age appropriately. We increase the sophistication of it or the intensity of it. And it's remarkable how they made those connections really early in their lives, and how emotionally and spiritually healthy that makes you. They go, okay, I get dignity from work, money comes from work, and then I can do things for others, I can do things for my future self, and I can enjoy some this week. Whether it's, candy, or whether it's I want to buy a car because I'm 16 and that kind of stuff.
Is financial responsibility tied to the actual kind of responsibility children have at a very young age, 5, 6, 7 years old?
It's all tied together because money goes to what we think is important, whether we're 5 or whether we're 45 or 85. Your treasure's where your heart is. And so I spend money on what I value. whether I know it or not, I'm still doing it. It's still your checkbook. If you were to look down what you've spent money on, your flow of money through the household, it tells you what you think is important. Whether you like that or not, you might not like it. It's a lot of happy hours on here. I'm like, alcohol is important, or it's, or there's, all I do is invest and I don't have a life. And so I don't have a life and I don't think having a life is important. Well, that's not good either. So, but where your money goes. And so, yeah, it's tied to responsibility. It's tied to emotional well-being. It's tied to a proper spiritual view of life and not being self-centered and being other-centered and being future-minded, having a vision for your life, all those kinds of things. It all ties in together, but money's more, it doesn't cause it, but it more represents that's what's happening inside of that youngster as they grow up.
I want to take you to one of the darker times in your life, when you declared bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like you failed personally?
I knew I failed. I didn't just feel like it. I did. It destroyed me. Because I grew up in a hard-driving entrepreneurial household, and I had a toxic view of success at that time as a young guy. I was an arrogant little twerp. And so being successful financially, being successful in business was my identity. And so I didn't just lose the money. I lost me in the process. I lost my identity. And so I didn't just simply go broke. It wasn't just a monopoly game I lost. It was an internal existential crisis. And so, I not only went broke, I was broken. And I was overly confident before, and after that, it shattered my confidence. I didn't have any swagger left at all. It's 2.5 years of hell we went through, losing property after property and getting foreclosed on, getting sued so many times. And they were all right. It was all default judgments, It wasn't, none of them were, inaccurate lawsuits. I owed money I didn't pay. They sued me. It was pretty simple. And, we're brand new married. We had a brand new baby. Rachel was born in April. We filed bankruptcy in September. Denise was a toddler. Our marriage was hanging on by a thread because the number one cause of divorce and money fights and money problems, and we were no exception. Because the poor woman thought she married Sir Galahad. Turns out it was Goober. Oh my gosh, bless her heart. She got in a mess. And so, yeah, it was more than that. And I had met God, my faith journey, on the way up. But, boy, I got to know him on the way down. It strengthened the thing I came out of it with more than just a maturing and was this stone cold faith after that. It's just solid because it was built in fire. It wasn't built. It was built in a lot of pressure, and it created a solid thing. So those are the blessings that came from it. But man, it was 35 years ago. When I'm talking to somebody on the air, they're calling me, I can hear that thing in their word choice. I hear it in their voice tone. I hear it in the pauses when they're calling. I hear a little bit of choke up. I can hear maybe a tear starting, the throat's getting tight, the octaves changing in the voice. I can hear, and it runs all down in my spirit, runs down my back. I remember like it was a moment ago when I'm talking to one of those people. I can smell the fear on them, the terror on them. I remember it so well. And it's given me the ability uniquely to be there and to help people in that situation because I can smell it. I know what it smells like.
How were you able to forgive yourself?
Took a while. Truth is, I didn't. At first, I didn't blame myself. At first, I blamed everybody else, like mean old IRS, the mean old banker, the president's fault. It was, somebody else had to cause it because it couldn't have been me. And then when it came crashing down around my head, one of my buddies is like, you signed all the papers. You signed up to take this trip, and you got to take the trip, and then you're bitching about the trip. And I was like, don't you love good friends? And so, I hit bottom on that. And I think it's I think the process of grace that I walked into there was, okay, if one of my kids made a mistake that was that brought harm to themselves. Okay, they trip, fall, cut their head, and take them to the emergency room because they were running across something. I told them not to do it. They did it anyway. Boom, bust their head. Do I hate them? Well, no. Am I mad at them? No. I did tell you not to do that, but I did told you not to do that because I didn't want you to get hurt because I love you. And so I had to step back and say, okay, God is not mad at me. My heavenly Father is not mad at me because I did some stupid stuff that brought harm to myself. He's somewhat amused, possibly, by how dumb I can be.
I told you so.
I mean, you look at your kids sometimes, you're going, y'all are just dumb. And so, but and he's probably a little bit sad that I hurt myself, but he also knows I'm gonna be okay, and he's got a plan. And the story didn't end there. And I was 28. I knew it didn't end there. I didn't have any idea what it was going to be, but I knew that life wasn't over. I just knew this was like the worst possible valley I'd ever been in or seen. But walking through that much manure, it's got to be the ability to grow something with all that fertilizer. So, that's kind of the way I started looking at it. I just said, okay, I did something stupid. Well, welcome to being human. And there's a difference between being stupid and doing something stupid. I'm pretty smart, but I can do stupid stuff. But I don't have to identify as stupid then.
Right.
I identify as a guy who has the ability to do smart things and a guy who has the ability to do stupid things, and I did a whole series of stupid things. Now, what I've got to do is do a CSI, an autopsy on this, and learn from it so I don't ever do it again. So that became one of my goals is I know I'm going to do stupid things. I know I'm going to try things that don't work. What I want to do is never do the same stupid thing again.
Right.
So whatever that one was, okay, check that one. I don't have to do that one again. I got that one behind me. I got that one behind me. I got that one behind. And if you do a whole bunch of that, by the time you get to be my age, you're what they call wise.
Right. Well, maybe you could walk us through step by step. How did you earn trust back with your wife after that time?
The way you earn trust with anyone where there's trust is broken. So what did she lose trust in? My integrity? No. My integrity wasn't broken. I didn't lie, cheat, steal. I didn't lie to her. I didn't tell her everything, but she didn't ask. And she was just taking, I'm running the business. We were very separated. But we said, okay, we're going to put some principles in place that we're going to operate our lives on. One is we quit we don't make any financial decisions of size without both of us being involved. And whether it's a large giving decision or a large investment decision, even a large decision at Ramsey. Now, large is relative these days, right? I spend more on coffee at Ramsey in a month than I used to make in a year. So, large is relative, but we don't make major moves. I don't buy a car, and I never have in 30 years since all that, and come home and go, look what I did. We make those decisions together. We obviously don't buy a house. We make those decisions together. And so I'm making better decisions, and that way she's involved. And then if the decision is bad, we did that together. You can't say I told you so. You can't say, well, I still can't trust you. Well, no, you were in there too, Duber. So, we got it. So that's the first thing we did. We do everything together. We started doing a written budget. And so she knew where the money was, because not knowing is scarier than bad. Bad news is not as hard to work through. Scary news is not as hard to work through as the unknown. Unknown scares the crud out of people. Ambivalence is a disaster, relationally, psychologically, spiritually. It'd kill you. So I'd rather know what it is. At least I know what the enemy looks like then, okay? And so we would just got the yellow pad out, and we had, okay, here's 26 things we need to do. Here's our budget, and let's just start force rank those things. We got to get the air conditioner fixed. The roof is leaking. We got all this stuff that happens when you deferred everything, maintenance, right? And so we start working our way back through that. Check. But she's involved in every bit of that. And it took years before she completely relaxed. But to this day, if we're working on something and she smells or she feels like there's a little of that old Dave working on that. Like she'll say something like, "You're scheming and scamming. You're bothering me." Because that means I'm rolling with some idea, right?
Yeah.
I've got something going. You're bothering me.
The unknown is what's
and
so
I'm-
scary.
Yeah, and it scares the crud out of her because it activates all those old scars, those old wounds come to the surface, and then we just have to stop and go, well, I'm not scheming and scamming, but I am running hard. Here's what we're doing, and if we don't both agree on something, we don't go forward. And she's 30 years later, of track record, trusts that. And but 30 minutes after, it didn't. She would tell you she didn't trust. What she didn't trust my judgment, because I was so cocksure that I knew everything. I mean, you guys think I'm pretty confident today. You should have seen that character, I mean, so, but and then all of a sudden that guy, everything he knew was apparently wrong,
Right.
and he screwed up everything.
I'm sure she was attracted
And
to
so
your confidence.
yeah, exactly. And
now all of a sudden-
like we were dating. I had $1.67 in my checking account in college. I mean, I was so broke I couldn't pay attention, and I had this old car that was worn out, a Monte Carlo, and I'd put the third engine and the fourth transmission in it. And I was driving along on our second or third date, and I was telling her how someday I'm gonna be a millionaire. And we drove across a railroad track, and the muffler fell off my car.
That's fun.
So, but then I was a millionaire, and then I lost it. And so she'd been on this whole ride, from the muffler to the millionaire to the Jaguar to the lose everything. And then, so what she lost confidence in was not me as a person, but my judgment. And then when she got to participate in the decisions, instead of counting only on my judgment, and then we had a lot of wins after that because we started using common sense principles instead of violating the things, then that rebuilt it.
It's so incredible to me that you became a millionaire twice, at least, that I know of.
Yeah. I'm so dumb I had to do it twice.
Out of 100%, though, how much of your success do you think was luck and how much of it was hard work? Because I'm of the belief that 90% of why my life is the way that it is purely luck. And the way that I view that is just where I was born, the parents I was. If I was born one door over in Russia, the Soviet Union, I wouldn't have come to the U.S. I wouldn't have had these opportunities.
Right.
And it's interesting when I ask this question because I think here in the first world, we don't think about these things. And so someone like you who's done it twice, you were in control, but how much of it do you associate with chance versus your ethic and your character?
I would associate it not with luck, but with providence. With the things that I don't control, but God did have a plan. And so even though I didn't understand it, and you didn't understand which door you were born, which house you were born in, and you don't understand why choose this family to come here? And how does that end up putting you in front of this microphone? It's both. It's both providence, God's plan, and your hard work. And I always use the story. It helps me remember how things work in that of Earl Nightingale, the famous motivator of the 1960s, probably the grandfather of motivational speaking, told the old story of the farmer walking along the dirt lane, or the preacher walking along the dirt lane. He comes up over the hill, and there's this beautiful farm, not a weed out of place. The crop's a bumper crop. The little house is painted, looks like a Norman Rockwell painting. And the preacher walks to the end of the row and sees the farmer coming out. And the old farmer comes out. He's in the row hoeing out the weeds, and comes out. He's got calluses. He's covered in dirt. His bib overalls are dirty. And the preacher says, "Farmer, the Lord has blessed you with a beautiful farm." And the farmer says, "Yes, sir, he has. And I get on my knees every morning and I tell him thank you. But preacher, you ought to have seen this place when he had it all to himself." So there's this mix between, if you want corn, you got to plant some, and you got to work it, and you got to do the work, but you don't get to control the sunshine and the rain. And so sometimes the sunshine comes, sometimes the rain comes, sometimes it doesn't, even if you do the work. And then you get to the end of the story and you go, oh, that's how those, because what if I hadn't gone broke? I would own a whole bunch of lower income property, which is what I owned. I'd be a 65-year-old guy that had a bunch of multifamily units, and that would be it. So how can this horrible thing that happened to me end up being the best thing that happened to me? Oh, wait a minute. Did I cause it? Yeah. Did God allow it? Yeah, because did he have a plan? And I'm sitting here the other side of it, and I look back. So, yeah, I don't know what the percentages are, but I'm 100% sure if you don't plant corn, you won't get any. ever. And you can get all spiritual about it and say, I'm going to pray about it. You can do all this stuff, but it's still going to be muddy when it rains. No corn. So you got to get out there. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. You got to do the work as an act of faith that there's a cause-effect universe. I'm going to reap what I sow. I'm going to get back what I put in at some degree. And then there is this unknown thing, this unseen hand that comes alongside us. I choose to believe it's a Father that loves me and has a plan for me. And that's pretty comforting. So even when bad stuff happens, I can go, well, I don't really know why I'm getting some extra loads of fertilizer, but now I have some.
Yeah. Well, besides the providence that you've had for building the empire you have today, was there any other moment in your life that you recall that you felt like there was a divine intervention?
All the time. And it's not spooky or weird. It's just I just look around and, I'm a kid from Antioch, Tennessee, man. I grew up hillbilly redneck. I was a beer drinking, hell raising, getting a fight on the weekends guy. That's who I was. Something off a movie, And God, I'm doing this. You don't call that a miracle? I mean, I look around, I go, I got over $100 million in payroll. Holy crud. You think I can do that by myself? I can't do that by myself. Just getting up and coming down here every day is an act of providence.
That's fair.
Was there a specific moment that almost didn't happen when you met your wife? Providence?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I have to believe it is. And, what made her decide, she wouldn't go out with me. But I'm the guy that won't give up. So I asked her 46,000 times until she finally said yes. And then she tried to break the date after she made it.
What?
And I'm all this. So, yeah, I couldn't get the woman to go out with me. She was ridiculous.
Wait, how persistent were you to get your wife? How many times did you ask?
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's she will tell you.
But 45 is an exaggeration.
Yeah, not much, but a little. Yeah, but it was a consideration. I can promise you. It was not like she just went woo. Not at all.
Yeah,
No.
Can you tell us the story? How did you meet?
We were in marketing class at the University of Tennessee, and she was cheating off my paper.
Oh.
But she was cute, so I let her.
Okay. Did you ever try to impress her with stuff you had at the time, or like, look at my
I didn't
cool
have
car?
anything.
You didn't have anything.
I told you the
Okay.
car muffler fell off the car, man. No, she was not impressed with that. All she could see was that, she grew up on a farm, and her daddy owned a convenience store, and so hard work was part of their thing. And I worked like a maniac. I mean, I was selling real estate. I was working 60 hours a week and carrying a full load in college. And so, and I was, I'm making money a little bit in the real estate business, but not serious money. I was an 20-year-old kid selling real estate. I mean, it wasn't like everybody's lining up to list their house with me. So, but she recognized things she admired probably in her dad, like work ethic and entrepreneurism. She saw that. So she probably somewhere down inside realized that could go somewhere, I guess.
Okay, so let's talk generationally. The TikTok generation is really an interesting new generation of investors. What have you learned from them?
I think I've relearned some lessons that I learned the hard way, and that is that that there's no shortcuts. And every time you go after a shortcut, get rich quick doesn't work. The quickest way to get rich is don't get rich quick. And so, when you're looking for a shortcut, when you're looking for the magic beans for the beanstalk to grow instead of just planting corn, it's going to cost you. And that's going to be true of the boomers. It's going to be true of anybody that does that. And we usually look for get rich quick in our character when we feel desperate, stuck, can't get it any other way. But I distinctly remember at 21 years old, the first time I saw compound interest tables, and I went, this is magic. This is magic. And but then I went about the business of doing Flip This House, which had nothing to do with compound interest. It was just trying to make money quick, and I did make money quick. but I didn't keep it. And so what I've relearned is the same lesson I learned when I went broke is the crock pot is a much better method than the microwave.
Well, if you didn't have the wealth that you do today, would you still be happy, you think?
Oh, yeah. I've never been unhappy. I mean, I've had down times, but I've never been an unhappy person. I don't know whether that's the blessing of just a disposition or it's just an outlook. I have, like anybody else, we have frustrations and things that, you go through periods of time, you're like, good gosh, that's awful. But it's like, my happiness is not based on what we own or where we are at all. Not even close. I don't even feel like it's real most of the time. I'm just like, wow, this is just weird. It's kind of a weird life, But and it has come over 30 years too. It didn't come over 30 minutes, so it's not a surprise. But yeah, our happiness is based on a proper ordering of things, and money's way down that list. So money can't buy happiness. Money can buy fun, but it can't buy happiness. I mean, relationships, the quality of your life, the connectivity. Holding one of my new grandbabies at the hospital. I got another one coming in a couple months. I can't wait. I love the little ones, the brand new little babies. They're awesome. It's like a little puppy. They're just awesome. And so if you don't like little babies, there's something wrong with you,
Yeah.
So it represents hope and future and everything else. And so, that's the stuff that makes you happy. If we need to pay the hospital bill, we can pay it, but that's not the thing. But, and really lack of money doesn't make you unhappy. It just makes you have crummy circumstances.
It's interesting when I used to not have money, not that much money, not that I have a lot now, but I would think that having money would make me happy. And then once I made some wealth, now I think about it the same way as I do my health. Like, I don't wake up in the morning and I'm like, I'm so happy that I can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so great. I don't think about it. It's not even a thought that enters my mind. But when I get sick, I'm like, why wasn't I grateful for just having two nostrils breathe openly?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I feel like having money is. I'm never necessarily grateful when I wake up for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when I didn't have it, it felt like the end of the world.
Well, and I think I have this tremendous blessing that God has given us too, that I get to talk to people who are hurting every day, and it reminds me. It reminds me how good things are, and then it helps me with my gratitude factor. I go, oh man, I remember being there, and thank you, God, that we're not. Thank you, we're here, and so I'm thankful.
How do you feel about the common quote that health is the new wealth?
It's a good quote. One of the things we used to talk about was if you spend your health getting wealth, you'll end up spending that wealth trying to get your health back. So these people that, hypertension, they overeat, they're going hard, they're drinking hard, they're up all night, they don't have a good sleep factor, they don't do anything, they don't take care of themselves at all. You're going to pay for that, with an open heart surgeon doing a biscuitectomy, removing that stuff because you've been eating poorly, you've been no exercise, all you've done is think about the gathering up of wealth, and you built bigger barns, and there's a parable about that says that's a bad idea. So the trick is they don't have to be mutually exclusive. You don't have to spend your health to get wealth, and you can do both. You don't have to give up your relationships to become wealthy. You can have high quality relationships and build wealth. They're not in conflict. They don't have to be in conflict. They can be if you take one of them to an extreme or the other. But it's the older that I get, the more important it is to realize to take care of yourself, because you can't. You give $100,000 to buy one more year with those grandbabies, or $1 million to buy one more year with those grandbabies. And so, why wouldn't you give up a few days? Like I lost a bunch of weight during the back end of the pandemic because I got fat. I'm still fat, but I was really fat in the pandemic, and I started walking, then I started running. And these days I've got a little puppy I'm training, and so she's a year old, so I took her out this morning. We did 4.5 miles this morning, And so I'm like 1,473 days or something on my app that I've done 1 to 5 miles every morning, except for 3 days I was in the bed with this mysterious disease in 2020. But other than that, I mean, I'm deadly, I'm doing that, and I'm, constantly thinking about and looking at, not obsessing, but thinking about, okay, I can't eat everything on the table, even if I want to,
Yeah.
And so I
gotta walk your puppy. You gotta go out there.
You gotta do it. You gotta do it.
Do you have any secrets to staying healthy?
No. My buddy James Clear wrote this wonderful book called Atomic Habits. It's a massive bestseller, and I was just with him the other day. We were doing a leadership conference. He spoke for us, and reminded me that the habits that change you. If you can get 1% better every day, by the end of the year, you're like a world-class expert on that thing, whatever it is. I mean, you get 1% better on your health or your exercise regime or your calorie intake or whatever it is. By the end of the year, you've dropped some pounds, you're toned. The whole thing is changing. 1%, just little changes, but just concentrating, being intentional. It's compound interest, but in the health world, if you wanted to go there. And so I think that's helpful.
Yeah, I suppose when you're looking at somebody's potential investments and there's a risk to reward ratio, the more risk can, for some people, have an amplifying effect on their stress levels, which then affects their health, and you have to consider that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, risk is investing risk is emotionally relative. So, if you perceive risk where there isn't risk, that's a knowledge problem. That's not an emotional problem. It's like I was talking to a guy the other day. He goes, "I'll never put money in the stock market. I'll never buy a mutual fund. It's all rigged." And I'm like, no, that's not true. Right. You have a knowledge problem here. So you're perceiving risk where there's not one. And so, I've got too many buddies that spend too much time on the internet with the conspiracy theories and that kind of stuff. And so it's like, you're perceiving stuff there's no reality to that. And so, but perceiving the amount of risk that reality does present to you, and then gauging that against track record, against historical facts, then your risk can, your emotional reaction, the stress level that risk is causing should subside. It should go down. I always think of the example, young couple buying a first home, right? Anytime you buy something that big, their very first, it's very stressing. Why? Because the investment is risky? Well, Lord, no. Single family home is not a risky investment. I mean, it's great. You should do it. It's awesome. But because you've never done it before, because your knowledge base of that, you've never been to a real estate closing with a stack of documents. You've never been through the process of, analyzing this and thinking about it. And anytime you do anything the very first time, you have an emotional reaction that's not the equivalent of the actual facts. Because of a knowledge base.
What are some of the most frustrating conspiracy theories that you deal with?
Oh, just the idea that the economy is going to end. And so, I mean, the number of people that pull everything out and just, put $100 bills in a coffee can and bury it in the backyard because they freaked out. That stuff drives me nuts, because they're damaging themselves. They're not hurting me. It doesn't affect me. And it's not, well, Dave Ramsey, I don't care what you think about Dave Ramsey. That doesn't matter. You're killing yourself. That's just dumb. And they pull all their money out and they've got 73 truckloads of bottled water in their basement, and they don't have any investments at all because the stock market's evil and it's all rigged, and it's all this stuff, and it has nothing to do with any. I mean, it's just, or the economy's going to collapse based on the national debt or fiat money, or oh man, you're burning an awful lot of calories on stuff you got no control over.
You mentioned hanging out with a friend of yours that's worth at least $4 billion. I imagine you have a lot of cool friends. Is there anything that you've learned from those people that you found interesting?
Yeah, I'm constantly amazed how unsophisticated they are.
Really?
It's not really. I expected to find like hard to understand secrets of the rich down in there somewhere, like a a family limited partnership double backflip trust or something. I don't know. I mean, I expect there's something I'd never heard of. I thought there was going to be something that was woo, like one of your card tricks. I was like, how does he do that? It's like I don't. They're just, and they don't care what you think, so they don't really care if you're impressed. But they just like I met one guy not long ago. He's got like 26,000 acres of farmland. And that's it. Anything else. It's all paid for. He just bought a little bit more, bought a little bit more. And so he's worth, I don't know what that land was worth. I forget, it was something like $20,000 an acre. So whatever that multiplies out is over $1 billion. And it's all just dirt. And he's a farmer. And he just collects dirt.
So when you become a billionaire, there's no secret. No one takes you behind the stage
Nobody,
and is like, this is how it works.
No, there's no.
Not in the Illuminati, nothing.
No
club
Illuminati.
invites.
The only thing you do have to spend a lot of money on is estate planning to keep the government from taking most of it when you die. So you got to figure that out. But the actual making of and investing the money is it's really unsophisticated most of the time. I very seldom run into something that I'm like intellectually intimidated by. Not that I'm that smart, but I'm just saying it's just like, really? That's more like, that's what you do? You're kidding. It's kind of more, I'm caught off guard the other way, actually. But, real estate's not unusual, something pretty simple. People just dump money in mutual funds, and they don't even look at it, don't think anything about it, just keep throwing, oh, there's a lot in there. Who knew? I just kept doing it for a long time. And they really haven't spent all the time worried about their 12B1 fees or, this 0.5% of return. Did it really do that, or was it, they really don't argue about all that. They just keep doing it, and sometimes they're, I met a guy who's worth several billion, owns salvage yards, junkyards, like most of them in the world.
For cars?
Yeah, all over the world. But him and his wife lived in a trailer on the first one, and lived on the junkyard with the junkyard dogs running around outside the trailer in California. And then he took the money. They're profitable. They make really good money. And bought another one, and he's in his, I guess, 70s now, and he's billions and billions and billions of dollars. But I mean, if you buy an auto part off of used cars anywhere in the world, you probably bought it from him.
So do you see the same story of compounding interest sort of playing out with like compounding farmland, compounding junkyards?
Yeah, I think they find something that works, that they know and they understand. They're not bringing in, I've got a guy that understands everything, that I don't understand anything, but he's going to, that's how you lose your money, right? Mm-hmm. I'm talking to these athletes, man. I was talking to an NFL team, trying to explain to these rookies, NFL stands for not for long. And, dude, one of the guys is like, I got a man, don't have to worry about my money. I got a man. I'm like, you're about to be broke. You're going to lose it all. That's what people say right before they lose everything. I got somebody else babysitting my stuff. Yeah, bad idea. You should have someone helping you, showing you, teaching you. You don't just turn it over to somebody else and let them send your money off to boarding school. That's not going to work out well. But yeah, they just find something they understand, and they do it over and over and over again. And it's usually out of balance. It's usually not well diversified. Like the farm guy, he doesn't know anything else. He didn't even have enough cash. I don't think he ought to have more cash. He's got a lot of dirt, though.
If 20-year-old Dave was here in this place in this year, what would young Dave be most surprised by about the world and the way things are today?
20-year-old Dave was an idiot to start with, but would
he say you made it?
Yeah, but I had a view then that I don't have now, that a lot of people have that same view, and it's an inaccurate view, that there was only so much out there, and if I didn't get my part, somebody else was going to get it. And my friend Rabbi Lapin says that money is not like cake. If I get a big piece, there's not as much left for you. That's not how money works. It's not how opportunity works. It's not how success works. It's not like cake. It's more like candles. I can light your candle off of mine, and I've still got mine. And so it's more of an abundance mentality rather than a fixed pie mentality. And if I was here today, I would. If that kid who thought things were fixed was here today, he probably would be very surprised at the amazing, how wide and vast the opportunity is in this digital world. I mean, you can just decide this morning that you're a podcast YouTube guy, and all of a sudden you are. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to get a license. You don't have to go to school. There's no barrier of entry. You can just go do stuff. And I'm telling you, pre-internet, it was not that way. There was a lot more economic barriers, doors you had to kick down, things you had to walk around, things you had to climb over and tear a hole in the roof and get down in there. And nowadays you can just go, I am one, and go do it. And that truly is candles everywhere versus cake. And so, you guys can take up a huge amount of space, and you do, because you're big stars on YouTube. And so can I. And we didn't hurt each other one lick. As a matter of fact, we can sit here together and actually help each other. Isn't that the coolest thing? That's an abundance mentality rather than a fixed pie mentality. And I think that little hillbilly kid would be surprised as to how much abundance and ease of entry into the marketplace there is to just go be somebody right now.
That's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you so
and
much.
That is why Dave is the way he is.
Yeah, the abundance mindset.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate it.
Honored to be with you.
I took your advice on beans and rice and playing cards.
Ah. Look at you.
That's good.
Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate you making the time.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.